Chapter 4. I didn't know what Grandad would be like. Mum never talked about him. Maybe he'd be an angry old man who didn't want us to be there. Mum must have told him that I'd been expelled from school, so he'd probably hate me already. But Grandad smiled at us when he came to the door. He stood there in his jeans and an old chunky jumper that was as white as his hair and welcomed us in. "Dylan," he smiled, "good to see you." "Hi," I mumbled. Mum stood in the doorway and didn't go in right away. "Hi, Dad." Grandad took her coat. "You've had a long journey. Come in, love. I've got a pot of tea on the go." Grandad lived in a small house on the end of a terrace at the end of the town. It was the last house before the sea. A smell of baking and fresh paint filled the house. He didn't have much furniture inside. He didn't have much at all. He didn't even seem to have a TV. We sat down on the sofa, and Grandad poured tea for himself and Mum and a glass of water for me. He cut a cake into slices for us. "Spiced apple cake," said Grandad, "made with apples from the tree." "You've been painting," said Mum. Grandad nodded. "I freshened up your old room and cleared out the attic room for Dylan. Hope they're okay for you." Mum nodded and ate in silence after that. Grandad brushed the cake crumbs from his trousers and stood up. "There's a lasagna in the oven for you to heat up tonight. I'm afraid I can't eat with you as I've got choir practice." "Choir practice?" said Mum. "I didn't know you sang." Grandad smiled. "I give it a go. I took it up a few years back." He pulled on his cap and headed to the door. "See you later." Mum went to wash the plates and heat up the lasagna. I looked round the living room. Apart from a bookcase, a sofa, an armchair, the room was bare. There weren't any pictures on the walls, but there was a photo in a silver frame on the shelf above the fire. I picked it up and looked at it. It was a picture of 3 people in a small boat. One of them was Grandad. I knew it was him, but he was a lot younger with dark hair. A woman was standing next to him, her arm linked in his. There was a young girl sitting cross-legged and grinning at the camera. When I looked closely, I could see it was Mum. I heard Mum coming back into the room, so I shoved the photo back on the shelf, but it fell and the glass smashed on the hard corner of the fire grate. "What are you doing?" said Mum. "Nothing," I said. "It fell." "Dylan!" snapped Mum. She picked up the photo and stared at it. I peered at the picture too. "Is that you?" "Yes," she said. She put the photo down and started picking up the bits of glass. "Is that your mum with you?" I said. Mum turned to me. "Why don't you go up to your room? I'll call you when supper's ready." I headed out of the room. I could tell she didn't want to talk about it, but when I looked back, I saw Mum pick up the photo again and stare at it. It felt odd being in this house where Mum had grown up, not knowing anything about it or knowing anything about her past.